Are you cold?
Yeah, I don't know why. It's not even that cold outside, but I'm wrapped up in my quilt. What do you think about that? I'm a man with a quilt.
It's a pretty masculine quilt. Doesn't have like teddy bears, on it or anything. It's a very masculine color scheme.
I don't see anything wrong with a man having a quilt.
No, if anything, it would be, why are you so young with a quilt?
You think ageism comes into play with quilts?
Well, you think sexism comes into play. I think more ageism, age than sex.
I think quilts should be distributed amongst everyone because they aren't just functional. They give an ability to express your personality.
I don't feel like they make you very warm though.
They serve the purpose.
It's just like a little bit of an extra layer. Most quilts are kind of thin.
Yeah, that's all you need sometimes when it's 52 degrees. It's not like you're out in the wind. And you're not.
Yeah, but I want like a fluffy, soft something.
It's probably perfect in the summer because
It's light enough.
yeah, it gets so hot. Last summer, I didn't even sleep under the covers once. I bought a new comforter in June, and I slept on top of that thing. I didn't open my bed from June to September.
Wow, it's like a vault when you opened it.
A time capsule.
Yeah,
I had put some food in there, some chips.
smart. Did an experiment with some McDonald's products to
what-
see what broke down faster.
That's what I was just going to say. McDonald's, the burger was preserved.
Yep, you ate it. It was delicious.
It looked exactly the same coming out
Yep.
as it went in.
Whenever I eat McDonald's, when I shit it out, it looks exactly like it did going in.
That's what happens with pudding with me.
Pudding,
Chocolate pudding.
it just runs right through. It's barely processed.
Looks the same. Though sometimes I take Pepto-Bismol with the pudding to make it a little darker. Since Pepto-Bismol turns your poop black.
Black. Does your tongue turn black ever taking Pepto?
No.
Some people have that because they're an excreter or something. Like the people. Some people don't get newspaper ink on their hands.
I think this is a tale that bored wives because they had nothing better to do back in the day because they sat at home serving the property of men. They didn't have anything to do, so they made up this story about ink.
No, you think women who don't have the right to vote are sitting around talking about excreters?
They're talking about, oh, did you know that some people don't get ink on their fingers? It just doesn't happen. And then it gives them something to do. Then they experiment and they talk to all their friends. On fingers. Read a real newspaper, get ink on your fingers. Why does newspaper ink rub off? Can newspaper ink make you sick? I don't see one thing here where it says that some people that don't get any ink on their fingers.
Is it safe to eat newspaper?
Where'd you hear this?
From a very
The Mom's Board.
a very specific and
it was the
trustworthy source.
Yeah, the Crofton Mom's Board.
No, this is something from much farther back in my history.
Okay, what was it?
Michelle. Hey, she knows a lot about things.
Apparently not about newspaper. Are you texting her now? Hey, Michelle,
No,
what's the
she's
deal?
Probably asleep. It is past 9:00.
What's the deal with this newspaper ink? You lied to me.
You lied to me. Bong. Hold on. Some people. I'm gonna write. Some people don't get ink from newspaper.
What's the
Now this is
mechanism?
confirmation bias because I'm searching for something specific.
Well, what's the idea of the mechanism that keeps it away?
It's because you're not secreting something through your skin that would make the ink come off of the newspaper.
When the ink just comes off, think of Silly Putty.
Not always.
Think of Silly Putty. You put it on a newspaper and it picks that ink right up. You saying the Silly Putty's a secretor?
No, that's not an alive system that might.
But then why does it always pull ink up?
Because of the way that the whatever's in the silly putty.
No.
You can't put silly putty on like a book and get the ink off of that.
That's different printing process. Newspapers had to be done cheaply. You had to make so many of them every single day.
I understand.
You're still looking for this. All of the world's misinformation comes from old wives. They just got so fucking bored with life that they just made shit up. And look, I don't blame them. I'm just saying that's where it came from. I blame the dudes. The dudes who said your job now is to sit around and do nothing. You raise the kids, and you make me food, and you make sure the house is clean. And for all your efforts, I'll give you my last name. Wow, thank you. What a gift.
Welcome to One Topic, where we stick to one topic. My name is Autumn Fisher.
My name is Greg Russ, and you wanted to talk to our friends in Japan today.
Yes, because we keep seeing the number of listeners go up in Japan. And at first, I think it was a really low number. What was the first number that you saw there? Was it really just one?
I mean, over the first few months that we did this show,
Yeah.
it was 1 or 2 downloads a month.
Yeah.
And then last month, I feel like it was 60 something.
What is happening?
It's spreading like the coronavirus over there.
We're the coronavirus. If only people would take us seriously.
Yeah, I don't take the coronavirus seriously. Maybe I should, but all these people are rushing out and getting supplies, and I'm the person who says, whatever. No big deal. And maybe I'll get sick and die. Served me right.
It's hard to know how to react. This is not the episode, but it's hard to know how to react to this because it's like you don't want to blow it off and then...
And die.
And yeah, and then or you're not prepared for the worst.
But you also don't want to go carry 16 rolls of toilet paper home.
You don't want to overreact.
Yeah. So anyway, in Japan, apparently we're really catching on. So maybe we could take a world tour over there and go do a live taping in front of an audience of, well, if we had 60 something downloads, it could have just been 8 people who've downloaded all our episodes.
Right.
So
right.
Maybe we could get 2 of them out and do a live taping. It'll be like Radio Labyrinth at that point. A giant crowd.
Wow.
What?
That was a straight burn.
Nah, that's just friendly joshing amongst shows that are pals.
I would much rather do our show in front of a smaller group of people than a lot, because I feel like if it were a lot of people, then it'd be like, oh no, you guys have made a huge mistake.
I feel like doing
but 2 people, it's like, oh, you guys want to be here. It's cool.
Yeah, I still think it's very strange to do a podcast taping in front of an audience.
So there are some podcasts that do a really good job at providing a show, like Bitch Sesh. Bitch Sesh does, they have like musical numbers. They have readings of scenes from reality shows on Bravo. They'll have little dance numbers. Did I say that already?
You said musical numbers.
Okay, good. They'll have like little dances.
But then
really
you're
cool.
just doing a stage show at that point, which is fine, and that's great. And if you have an audience who wants to come out and see that, I would be all for that. But just doing the podcast, if you were to do this show in front of watch
but their show is normally just a podcast with 2 or 3 people talking.
I understand what you're saying, but they're not actually doing the podcast at that point. They're doing a separate show that's being released as a podcast, and that's fine.
Both.
It's fine. But for one, what would the topic be for that day? Variety show?
Yeah. It would be our worst talents.
Well,
showmanship.
Yeah, this podcast.
Yeah.
Here's my worst talent, podcast hosting.
Yeah, sorry.
Enjoy it. I hope you're having fun. That $50 admission.
All right, but anyway, I
really
just wanna,
worth it.
I want to recognize people in Japan who are listening, because I think that's really neat.
Yeah, it is cool. Maybe we should go over there and scout out a theater. What do you say? April 30th sounds good.
Let me check my calendar. All right, I think I can do that.
All right, I'm not going to let this coronavirus stop my travel.
Konnichiwa, Tokyo.
I'm not going to let it stop my travel. If they cancel that flight for this hypothetical visit to Tokyo,
Yeah.
this ticket that hasn't been booked at all,
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
if they cancel the flight, I'm going to be very angry.
Yeah.
So, because I booked this non-existent ticket
All right, we all understand.
through Travelocity. So when you book through the third party site, sometimes they're a little more stingy and they steal your money and they don't want to give you refunds.
They wouldn't do, hypothetically, they wouldn't do that.
So yeah, hey, Japan listeners, watch out. We'll see you soon.
What else do you know? Do you know how to say anything else in Japanese?
No, that doesn't matter because that's not. We need to get to the topic. Sumimasen.
Oh, Sumimasen.
Just excuse me. Anyway,
it's a good
so tonight's
Arigato.
topic, whenever you're listening to the show, we're recording at night.
Yeah.
But I know you're not supposed to timestamp these things because people could consume that at any time. I'm sorry for making such an egregious mistake.
God forbid people know that we recorded this in the past.
No, it's live always.
Yes.
You're listening.
Well, it's live to tape.
Podcasting 101 states.
All right, what's the topic?
It's your week to pick the topic, so you tell me.
I would like the topic this week to be parents.
Oh, boy. I think it's a good topic. I just feel as though you're wanting to unload.
Not unload.
When you know, in some of our...
No, I unloaded in therapy. This will be a filtered unloading.
I think you should unload here. This is what makes the show enjoyable for some people.
Well, what are you doing? Are you criticizing me for thinking that I'm going to unload, or do you... So I don't know what you want. Do you want me to unload, or you don't want me to
Sure,
unload?
I would like for you to unload. I just said, oh, boy, here we go. Not that's not a bad thing.
Oh,
It wasn't.
okay.
I was like, oh, boy. It was like, oh, boy.
When I said filtered unloading, it was going to be an organized unloading and not just like, and then this and then that, like just complaining. I'm not going to be complaining.
So, what's got you going on this topic?
Well, I think we all have this idealized version of our parents until we get to a certain age, and then we realize that they really are just, people.
People who screwed up. Yeah, depending on how bad they screwed up, the younger that realization hits you. If you're
Sure.
3 and you realize that your parents stink, they really,
Yeah.
really do stink.
Yeah, that's on them.
It took me until I was 37 till I started to say, my parents were good, and I always defended them and all the problems I had with myself. I in therapy and just talking to other people, I said, there's a tendency to blame the parents, I know, but in this case, you can't do it. It's not my parents' fault. I created all this. It's all my own doing. But then you realize over the years, like, all right, there were certain things.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah.
If you're the kind of parent who throws kid cuisine at your children every night, not even cooked properly, scalding on the outside, and
Like the brownie is like molten lava, but the inside of the chicken is still frozen.
yeah, eat that.
There's a frozen center of the corn.
Eat that. Watch what's a popular kid show now?
Huh. It's hard to tell. It's all over Netflix, Hulu,
Just name
Prime,
one.
Puka.
Watch Puka. Leave me the fuck alone.
So I think it's something that everyone who is listening struggles with, because once you find out that your parents are just regular people, it's tough because you want them to be better because they're the protectors of you for so long, and you rely on them to be the rock, or you hope that you can rely on them to be the rock in your life. And then once you get older and realize that they do have their own limitations, that's a really hard thing to do, especially the way that, I don't know, society expects you to have a certain type of relationship with your parents. I mean, there are parents that do really horrible things to their kids, and their kids draw a boundary with them and say like, yeah, I just don't talk to my dad anymore. It's been 18 years or something. And they're like, you have to see, you should mend that relationship. Like, that's your dad. And I think that's bullshit, because
Yeah, I would agree
who
with
cares
that.
if like anybody can, make a kid with someone.
If your parents are
doesn't
so
mean anything.
awful that you've gotten to the point where you cut them out, then you don't owe them anything.
No. But that's what, but that idea, right, is pushed on you. And so when you start to realize that maybe there are some things about my parents that bug me, you feel like a bad kid. You feel like a bad offspring.
Well, that's
because you don't appreciate them anymore. You're kind of upset with them for not being perfect.
Let's start with that. I don't think that it should be presented that your parents should be perfect. I don't know. Maybe there should be a class of some sort where they teach you early on, your parents aren't perfect. Don't view them that way.
There needs to be like a college class.
That's too late.
No, it's not too late. That's when it's no.
For teaching kids, I think early on, the first class they ever take before they go to preschool, There should be a class. Hey, parents, they ain't perfect, so
No,
don't
that's
expect
when
them
you
to be
no 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 no.
perfect. And then you go in,
At
and
that
then you
age,
don't know.
that's when you need them to be
No,
perfect.
that's not when you need them to be perfect. That's when you need to start. That's just you need them to be attentive and do a good job
Yeah.
and make you feel not scared.
Right,
It
but that's
doesn't.
when you need to, okay, not for them to be perfect, but that's when you need to, as a kid, you need to assume that they're perfect.
That's where the problem comes from, because then it's ingrained at the beginning that you assume that parents need to be perfect, and then you're only disappointed later on when you realize they're not. And then when you become a parent yourself, you remember that. And you're like, well, I'll be the perfect parent. I remember how disappointing it was when I thought my parents were perfect, then I found out they weren't perfect, so I'm going to be the perfect parent. And then you do things like you forget to sign the permission for your daughter's yearbook photo, and now she's not going to have a picture in the yearbook, and you say to yourself, oh my god, I'm the worst parent in the world. I failed miserably. That's what ends up happening. Collect yourself. For people listening, that was a true story I just told. Maybe Autumn had told me in confidence earlier today that she had forgot to sign a permission slip for Ellie to have her picture taken at school. It was picture day, but because the slip was not signed, they did not take Ellie's picture, and therefore she will not have a picture in the yearbook, which
Her kindergarten yearbook.
I understand. There's a sentimental value to that. The picture will be in
Anybody
there.
looking for her, they're in high school, they go back, they're friends, and they want to go back and look at kindergarten. Whose class were you in? Oh, that person, let's go find you. Oh, there's no picture.
I I get that. First, what is this? You signed the permission slip. From what I remember, it was the other way around
I
previously.
know, that's why I didn't do anything about it.
The parents used to sign a slip that says, I don't want my child's picture taken. Otherwise, by default, you would get the picture taken.
Yes. And then you do the ordering of the picture.
Yes.
Right? Like the picture, like the proof is on there with like a watermark all over it. And then you decide, but this is like, you have to decide what background they want. You can like pick a background for them.
Okay.
I didn't do any of it.
Moving on from that, you made a mistake. There, the perfect parent illusion has already been shattered.
I know, and this is where I am.
If it took this long for it to be shattered, then you're already doing a good job. Or if this is the worst thing that's happened, you're fine.
All right, listen, I want to start this. We've really jumped the gun. I want to start.
You wanted to build up to that?
Yes.
I was making my point that no one teaches parents how to parent either. One, there's no way to be perfect because it's impossible, because children are hellions.
Yes,
and
I know that.
You want to start there? We're going back to the beginning. So as a parent, thinking that you're going to be perfect, that's wrong approach to begin with. And it's just something that people do because it's so easy. I'm not saying that people just do it all the time without thinking about it, but it is just something that's happened a lot over the course of human history. People have become parents. You just do it. Sometimes you don't know what you're getting into. And it's a weird thing because it's expected by society that you will settle down with someone and have some kids. So it's like, hey, here's this thing.
It's not just that.
Well, you have no clue how to do it, but there's pressure to do it. We're all expecting you to do it, and people in your family are going to be disappointed if you don't do it because they want to have some kind of alternate relationship where they're not a parent, whether they're a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, some outside relationship because it's easier. And so, look, there's kids, but I don't really have to take care of them. So then they say, have a kid. Then you have the kid, and then you don't know what the hell to do because it's insane.
Okay.
It's insane to be responsible for some creature. A giraffe falls out of its mother's vagina and it lands 4 feet on the ground, and it gets up and it starts walking around. And it's like the human, it's like, take care of that thing for 18 years. sometimes longer. Because they don't leave.
All right. I feel like, can you switch your brain and think of a less cynical point of view?
I don't think that is cynical. I'm not saying that having children is a bad thing. All I am saying is that if...
You're saying the reason why people have kids is because of some societal pressure, and that's not always the case.
That's not what I said. Sometimes, I mean, people make choices. They say they want this. It's something that's not an accident. Plenty of people do have kids that are accidents.
Yeah.
But even people who go into it prepared don't have a clue how to be a parent. You can read books. You can do whatever the hell you want. You're not going to be ready for this, and no one
Well,
teaches
because there
you.
is no one way to be a parent.
No, but no one even tries to even teach you how to do it. Like, you'll figure it out. It's instinct. It'll just kick in. That's where I'm coming from in saying this, is that it's a thing that a lot of people do because it's relatively easy to do, to have the kid, to get pregnant, let's say.
Yeah.
I've never given birth. You have. I'm sure that's not easy, nor is it fun. But it's something that happened. Like once it's there, it's happening.
It's weird how though how horrible it is, but then how appealing it is to do it again.
Nature fooling you.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah, I could describe horrible things and how it felt, but I'm still like, man.
It's like falling off of a bike, smashing your head on the ground without a helmet,
Yeah.
and then your body saying, "That was fun. Do that again."
Not fun, just like I kind of want to experience that again.
It's ensuring the human race survives. But
Yes.
anyway, I'm sorry if it seems cynical. That's not what I'm trying to do, because I do think there's much value in being a parent and raising children. All I'm saying is it's just something people are thrown into. So what the hell are you supposed to do? And maybe if there was some kind of class that was put forth that taught even parents that it's okay not to be perfect, and just try to feed your kids things other than kid cuisine.
You're really shitting on kids' cuisine.
Well, because they were so disappointing.
What was your favorite one?
I hated them all. When
You did?
when you see the packaging and the stuff
Yeah.
that comes, you want them. You say
That
that's
brownie was the best. Well, you know what? I mostly got like Hungry Man or something. The fried chicken one. That was so good.
As a kid,
Yeah.
eating the Hungry Man.
I loved it. It was the fried chicken and then corn and then a brownie in the middle. And then what was on the left? Mashed potatoes.
Yeah,
It was so good.
sometimes though, with the Hungry Man, you wouldn't get the brownie because they would think this is an adult eating this. We're going to give you the cobbler.
Applesauce. Oh, a cobbler. Yeah, fuck you.
But
I want that like molten lava brownie that was like hard as a rock on the edges and gooey in the middle. It was perfect. And then the chicken was so good. It was really good.
was it good? See, my experience with frozen meals was they were awful. They were always a letdown, and that's why I'm shitting all over kid cuisine.
Kid cuisine with the penguin.
Yeah, luring you in.
Yeah.
Look at
And the entree part was always like, I don't know, dinosaur nuggets and nothing like the Hungry Man fried chicken. I wonder how much sodium is in the Hungry Man fried chicken meal.
It's the only way it has any taste. It's the sodium. Same
Yeah.
with airline food. Anyway, getting back to parents, where do you want to start with this?
Well, I was going to start it with my parents.
Okay, so it's you as a child and your parents.
Yeah. I grew up with both my parents. They're still together to this day. We had a lot of fun. We sang in the car. They exposed me to theater and musicals. We did a bunch of theater with it was church theater, but it wasn't like crappy, stupid church plays, where someone learns like the gift of the Magi or something. It was, we did Godspell and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. We did Nonsense. We did it was really fun. And so I had a really good time with my parents growing up. As a teenager, I was still very proud to be with my parents a lot of the time. I wasn't the teenager that was like having them drop me off far away, like at the mall, but don't hang out with me, you're gross.
Which is so ridiculous. Everyone's got parents. Not everyone. So sorry for anyone listening who doesn't have parents.
We just lost
I mean,
so many.
you have parents somewhere. Maybe they weren't in your life.
Okay, yes. We know what you
And
mean.
if someone else raised you, then maybe you consider them your parents. But I'm not going to have foot in my mouth. Point is, what you're saying, someone's got some kind of parental figure. Then it's like, so if you're seen with yours and someone's making fun of you for it,
Yeah,
it's
you're
like, what
like-
the fuck?
Yeah, where are your parents?
Yeah.
These are I'm here with my parents because they're here with me. If it wasn't them, it would be with your parents. So shut the fuck up.
Yeah, what a ridiculous thing. But I bought into it. But you're saying it didn't bother you so
No,
much.
I really wasn't bothered. My dad, if I was annoyed by anyone, it was mostly my dad. I would hear him tell the same joke over and over to different people. I just little dumb things, like even like the way he bopped his head to music. I remember complaining about it to my cousin, and I was saying like, when you bop your head like this, it makes sense. But when you do it like that, like my dad does, it's so stupid. She was like, I don't know what you're talking about. It was just because I don't know. It was that stage, right, where you just have to create distance between you and your parental figures.
Yeah, I think it's jarring if you realize you have something in common with your parents at a certain age. Like, wait, no, I'm not supposed to be anything like you.
Yeah.
So if your dad's listening to music and bopping his head and it's a song that you like,
Well,
and you will bop your head, and you're like, hey, he's bopping his head wrong.
Honestly, it was like, I feel like, so it was in the 90s, and there was a lot of that R&B sort of rappy hip hop 90s music, that would be happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like there was like a cool way to like bop your head, and he did the opposite of that. It was so stupid.
Yeah, it's like the 90s joke of how a white person drives and how a black person drives.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were just applying it to your dad, and there's a cool way to bop your head.
Yeah.
Now, what was the hip hop you're listening to? Bone Thugs?
Yeah. Boom, 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 boom. They make out the crossroads.
Coolio.
Yeah.
Puff Daddy.
And the power, minute after minute. No, I always thought Puff Daddy was lame from the very get-go.
Well, that was when Puff Daddy was always featuring Mace. Mace would come in and pretty much perform the whole song, except Puff Daddy got credit for it. Maybe he wrote it. But he's like, Mace.
Puff Daddy.
And then Mace would take over. Nas, if I ruled the world.
What about, this guy, who's that? Ja Rule.
It's okay.
You want to get it? It's Ja Rule.
I mean, Outkast was that.
Hell yeah, Outkast.
That was big when we were in the 90s, but that holds up.
Yeah,
It's good stuff.
aliens.
Yes. And then I dip, you dip, we dip.
Oh my God! I put my hand up on your hip. When I dip, you dip, we dip. You put my hand up on my hip. Wait? I know all the words to that song.
Hot 97 Pernt Fizz Ive. I wouldn't listen to V103. I listened to Hot 97 Pernt Fizz Ive.
I'm just a squirrel. This is my world. I'm just a squirrel trying to get a nut. So what's up, yo DJ? When the party gets low, join this jam and watch that flow.
Yeah.
Oh, he talks about like, turn around, baby. Let me see you from the back. Yeah, I like it like that. Get up now. Roll those hips. Drop down, double up on those dips. Freak nasty wanna see. Can y'all do this right? I put my hand up on. I loved that song. Do you remember the one that was like the wop, wop, chicken, chicken, wop, wop, chicken? Boy, please, whatever.
I like that.
He says, you nothing but a scrub, knowing that you ride with your boy, you nothing but a scrub. And he's like, but okay. So she's saying like, you're lame and you're trying to hit on me, and she's saying like, you're with your friend and you're a scrub, and he's like, but he was with me. That's when you was hating, and when I got up on your friend, you damn near fainted. I sure did, and my face tricking on a yak, not full of gold, but your mouth needs some tic tac. And he goes, what you need some gum? Breath like some thunder. What you talking about? I don't want your phone number. Bark, bark, chicken, chicken, bark, bark.
I opened this vault. I like that it's all stored in your head still, and it just came spilling out. The dam broke. But the way you were dancing,
off my robe, I'm getting hot.
The way you were dancing and bopping your head.
Oh, was it so embarrassing? Was I doing it the not cool way?
Sure, if Ellie or Pete came in, they would have. Oh my God.
So embarrassing.
It is what you just did. If they were older and they saw you doing that as their mom, they would be highly embarrassed.
I'm sure. Sometimes I sing to them now and they're like, Mom, stop.
Well, yeah, Mom is old and she's in that closet recording this podcast, and look at the way she's dancing.
I'll just go, bark, bark, chicken, chicken, bark, bark, chicken head.
I can.
Ellie, do you know what a chicken head is?
Drop me off far away, Mom.
When is it appropriate to teach the kids what a chicken head is?
That's your choice as a parent.
Hmm.
So going back to your parents,
Okay.
you had fun. There was a lot of
Yes, we had
fun.
fun.
You were hanging out.
Yeah. Fun. Very important to me in relationships now.
I mean,
Fun.
that's the whole basis of your life is if it's not fun, I'm bored and I want out of here.
Okay. We don't have to characterize it like I'm bored. I want out of here. How about I don't feel as comfortable?
Well, you're hiding behind fun then. You can't
Sometimes,
fun.
I'm not. Sometimes it's just like, hey, let's make this fun.
You're using fun as a shield from the harsh realities of life sometimes.
Yes.
So this is what your parents taught you.
Which, I mean, if they're going to teach me anything that may devolve into something not as healthy, it's not a bad coping mechanism to try and like, let's just have fun.
I guess arguments can be made. I don't think that they purposely taught you that.
Oh, no.
They were
did
just
not.
having fun with you. But
Well, and not to give too much away, not to speak out of school, but their relationship is, yeah, it's fun. They get along, everything's fine, they're together, but it's not like it's deep because they've been together for a long time and experienced lives together, but it's not deep because they have a deep connection with each other.
this is how I feel. A lot of times people get old and they look back on their lives and they feel bonded, even if they had, and this isn't speaking about your parents, this is just
No.
in general,
Yeah.
even if they had a miserable time together, but they just stuck it out. Then it's like war. You survived a war together. So
Yeah.
of course you're going to be like, hey, look, we survived that. And then that becomes your bond at the end. But it's like, you should have never gotten, people look at that and like, oh, how romantic. It's like, it was not romantic. Most
Yeah.
of that life was probably spent in misery and disliking
Or
each
could
other
have been spent in misery.
and resentment for one another. And then you just get to the point of like, well, we're fucking old.
Yeah.
So what do we have in common now? All our
he
friends
knows
are gone.
exactly how I mix up my coffee.
Yeah, my body has failed me. My friends are gone. What's left? You. Oh, look at all the stuff that we
He's
did
seen
together.
the best of me and he's seen the worst of me. So we're gonna stay together.
Mostly the worst of me.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't want to say that like you said, that was not a depiction of my parents.
No,
But
that just made what you said made me think of
yeah.
some of these people.
So, my dad, who was a lovely person, his dad died when he was like 12, I think. He doesn't really or hasn't ever really talked a lot about that, his experience of it. If you do ask him about it, it's pretty brushed over. That's just how he is.
That's a big
my mom
traumatic thing to happen at a young
Yeah.
age.
And his dad did a real fucked up thing too. His dad felt like he knew he was dying, I guess. I don't even know what he died of. I don't know his name.
Yeah, this has really been shielded.
Yes. He, instead of dealing and helping my dad through the process of losing him at some point, he just started to back away and sort of abandon them so that they wouldn't be as sad when he died.
Which I can understand the desire to do that.
Yeah.
It's a sad thing for you to think about having to say bye to people.
Oh, right.
You know you're going to die and having to go say goodbye to everyone and go through the sadness and shed the tears. And
Right.
but I think ultimately, while it's sad in the moment, for the people who survive, it's much more helpful because you
Yeah.
don't feel abandoned. And I know it doesn't sound like that he wanted to abandon them, but it was just an avoidance. Like, I don't want to put them, he probably didn't want to go through it himself.
Right. But that's the thing. So you're already dealing with someone who would do that and then wouldn't put their son's experience through something like that ahead of his own. So that's messed up.
Yeah, if you had that, though, if you had that closure, I think that would be helpful. It's still a traumatic thing to happen.
Of course. Right.
But you don't feel, I think already if you're a kid, even if you say, if a parent dies on you, you're going to feel somewhat abandoned.
Yeah. Even if it was a healthy,
Hopefully less.
Departing.
Yeah, hopefully less if there was a discussion, but I think some of that still exists. To have no
Of course.
discussion, yeah, that's a tough one.
yeah. So that sort of influences his relationships as an adult, as a very much of an adult man. And my mom was sixth child out of 8, and she was the youngest girl.
I'm just laughing. I'm thinking of what she said earlier about how your body tells you that was great. Have another kid.
Well, back then, you know, people,
I know
her
now.
mom didn't really have a choice. Her dad was an alcoholic, and her mom was adopted under some very traumatic circumstances, and the trauma sort of continued where she and her sisters or brothers or whoever were allowed, not my mom but my grandma, she was allowed to see her own mother but not interact with her, or like not go to her. And so what a heartbreaking thing to happen. And then she was adopted. I think weird things happened. I think she was separated from her sister. Anyway, so you're bringing those two people together with 8 kids. My mom being the 6th out of the 8. And then so they had the 7th and 8th kid like back to back. They were like Irish twins. They were like 13 months apart. So my mom was very much lost in the shuffle. Unfortunately, she is a very anxious person. Just that her chemistry is set to anxiety. So as a kid,
You're saying that's nature.
I think partly you can be a more anxious person or a less anxious person, and then things happen to you that may increase that anxiety or decrease that anxiety or whatever.
Yeah, I
but
agree.
for her,
You
I
can
think
be
that,
predisposed, and then nurture can pull it out more.
well, I think she was predisposed, and then because she was so lost in the shuffle that there was no one there to help her navigate those feelings of anxiety, and that has really influenced how she navigates her own life today. So none of this was really, I never really considered all of that until very much recently, and how their lives have affected them, which affects their relationship together, my parents, and then affects their relationship with me, which then affects my relationship with my relationships all around me
And your kids.
and my kids.
And I think you're a good parent, from what I know.
Oh, I'm not saying, and I'm not saying that they were bad parents, and I'm not saying that I'm a bad parent.
No, but when you say it affects, like, but that's the way. Yes, that is the way it goes. So let's just look at.
Well,
that.
let me connect the things together. So
Okay.
what I get annoyed lately with my parents is that why aren't they trying to be better? And it's because I want them to be the stronger and the wiser and the rock in my life. And in a lot of ways they are, but in some ways they aren't. Like mentally, I feel like they're not as like stable as I want them to be. And I feel like I'm a little bit more stable than they are mentally. Like I'm trying to better myself. And I feel like maybe they're not. And I feel a couple of things. One, I'm putting a lot of pressure on them to be perfect. You know, I'm having a hard time accepting them as just this is where they are, this is where they want to be. It's not my responsibility to try and get them to change or grow. I'm having trouble accepting them just as they are. And not because I'm mad at them for it or I think that they're weak or something, but more like I just want better for them. And then I put that same pressure on myself. Like with my kids, I am very familiar with the experience of being a kid and being around my parents who maybe at times I didn't feel like I could depend on them in certain situations, as far as like, you know, something would give my mom anxiety and then I felt like I needed to handle that. No one gave me that job. No one expected that of me, but I assumed the role. And so I'm connected with the idea of how kids feel around adults who are anxious or you don't feel stable around or something. And so I feel like I always have to perform a certain way with the kids, which sometimes results in me pushing things aside, being cool, pretending like everything's fine with them, and then I blow up. Instead of like slowly releasing the valve explodes off because I'm trying to play it cool for them and be better.
Which you don't need to do.
I know.
I think
but it's really hard.
if you present yourself as an actual person who has feelings and moods and is affected by things, that's going to teach your kids in the long run more than always being cool or being perfect, because then that sets unrealistic.
Cool-headed is what I mean when I say cool.
Okay, but it still sets unrealistic expectations about what it actually is to be a person.
And I would say that I feel like I do have more subtlety than that the majority of the time. But there are times when I'm like in a more compromised state where it's like maybe I didn't have a lot of sleep, maybe I'm getting sick, maybe my period's coming, I don't know. There's factors that make me less able to sort of slowly release the valve throughout the day, you know.
But those are real factors. Those are all parts of your life. These are things that come into play probably quite often.
Yeah.
And so trying to resist them.
I just want to be better.
Well, you can always strive to be better. I don't know what exactly that means in your situation, but you need to figure out what that means. There's this idea, I think, quite often that you talk to kids openly and honestly, and like, Dad, they're too young. They don't understand that. And I wish I had an example at this point, but maybe they don't quite understand it. But I think if you start introducing that stuff early on and you explain things for what they are, like, hey, I'm a person and I'm not perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And I have flaws. And
well, that's the big thing about, when you do explode, that you do go back and apologize for anything that you think you need to apologize for, to show them that you are human and you make mistakes also, stuff like that.
Yeah, but does describing maybe how that happened do something? Sure, with a 5-year-old, did they get it? No, I don't know. But, I mean, thinking of your dad, if you were capable of talking about his dad openly with you and maybe why it's affected him and made him a certain way, and he started that when you were younger, and you said conversations about it, real conversations, at some point, you would be able to piece things together. When you're really young, maybe you don't understand it so much, but you've had those conversations and they linger and something gets into your brain and it teaches you, what it is to be a person and how you can be affected by things. And then you don't grow up expecting your parents to be perfect. You still want them to be the parental figures and set examples and lead. And I think that is setting an example by talking openly and talking about how certain things have affected you and made you a certain way and how you're aware of it. And hopefully you'd like to work on it. But you don't need to be perfect, but you set this example of, self-improvement. And then it's, whatever shortcomings that you may find in your parents, the fact that they've talked to you about it openly, and they're putting in the work, that's the example. It's like, oh, wow. Then
because then you see them.
Well, that's where wisdom, I think, comes from, is self-awareness and working on yourself. Like, what more could you really want to teach your kid? Self-awareness, it goes a long way. That applies to so many realms of life. You want to teach them to be polite. You want to teach them to be aware of others and take other people into account. All of that comes out of self-awareness.
Yeah.
If you can instill that pretty early on, I think flaws don't matter. Being perfect doesn't matter. But some people avoid that. And maybe it's hard for them to talk about. And again, that's when I was ranting earlier about parents thinking they need to be perfect. I think that's dangerous. Maybe danger is too harsh of a word, but it's not good.
No, it's not helpful.
No.
Yeah, it's not dangerous.
It can be. I think it could venture into danger depending on how
of course.
extreme it is.
Well, yeah. Then you create. If you have a too high of a bar set for yourself, then you've probably set that bar too high for your kids, and then you create eating disorders and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, but danger as an umbrella statement,
Sure.
an umbrella adjective is not the best way to go. But I think about my parents, and I really did think they were good parents growing up. But the I guess one of the things I've come to realize is, I would close off and not talk about things with them, and they never pushed me to actually do it, which as a kid, I was grateful for. I was like, thank God they just leave me alone. But you
Yeah.
get older, like that's kind of strange. I'm acting, I'm going to the room, closing the door, and I know that some of this is normal, just child behavior, especially as you go through adolescence. But I feel like I was always a pretty sensitive kid, and I didn't know what the hell to do with my emotions, and I quickly just started shutting it down. And I was smart, and I could explain things away with logic, and that became my coping with it. And I think some people are very good at shutting down emotions completely, though, but I never was. They were there, and they affected me,
Right.
and they would seep out. I've made this comparison before. It's not like a volcano that the pressure would build up and it would blow up. That wouldn't happen, but enough pressure and then like cracks open and lava seeps out and it still burns shit around it. Like I feel like I was more like that. There were never big blow ups, but I was like, the
Yeah.
emotions are in there and that there's the stuff seeping out. And and the fact that my parents just kind of left me alone.
Would the things seep out and they would see the result of that and still not do anything?
Maybe. It's hard for me to think back on it now. It's not to say they didn't try. I would just always shut as like, what's wrong? Nothing. And then it would just kind of
Right.
leave it at that. So it wasn't neglect, but it wasn't, no, you need to talk to us. And I think that came out of this idea that they just wouldn't understand. That's like, they don't understand me. So why should I even
Right.
bother trying to explain?
Well, and you didn't really understand you.
No, I didn't. But one of the most frustrating things I encounter still to this day is when I feel misunderstood, because I'm trying to
Yeah.
explain something to someone and they don't get it, and I just get so frustrated. I'm like, forget this. I'm not.
You want to go back to your room and shut the door.
Yeah. So feeling like your parents aren't going to understand you, that's playing right into that whole system. Like I'm not going to share anything. So maybe if somehow that was recognized and they were like, all right, well, we got to figure out a way to make it
Connect.
so, yeah, that it could have gone a little differently. But as I've grown older, my mom's anxious, and so I think predisposed anxiety I have.
And your dad might be too.
Well, my dad,
He doesn't sit still long enough to.
yeah, he's anxious in his own way. He's not emotionally anxious. And when you need, someone stable because you're doing something in your life that scares you, or something you're worried about, and you want to talk to someone about it, he's good at, all right, well, you're doing this and you can do this. And it's not going to be, I bring up when I got my first apartment in Manhattan, which at the time I wasn't making that much money, and it was $1,200 a month, which was cheap for living in lower Manhattan and Greenwich Village alone. But for me, it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I remember I signed the lease and I was worried, and I called my mom. I was like, this is a lot of money. She's like, that is a lot of money. How are you going to do that? And I was like, oh, God, this is not what I need right now.
Yeah.
This is that's not why I called. Like, I expressed my concern to you, and I don't need you to go along with it right now. And if I called my dad in the situation, it's like, oh, it's fine. He's like,
Yeah.
you can handle that. I was like, yes, thank you. I know I can. That's what I need to hear.
Right.
So over time, I realized I started avoiding my mom when it came to discussions like that, because I don't want to deal with this right now.
Yeah. Well, because then you end up taking care of her feelings about what's going on when you were going to her to take care of you.
Yeah, which I don't have the bandwidth to do in that moment. So it's like,
Right.
all right, this is stupid. Why am I even
Right.
on the phone with you?
Yeah. What do you do at that point?
I
You like stay on the phone. You're like, okay.
guess shut down mentally a bit. No, my dad, growing up, his dad drank a lot. I didn't know my grandfather to be an alcoholic because he had a heart attack at like 58 or 59, and changed his whole life around at that point. And he lived to be like 86, 87. So he had a good 30 years after that, but he stopped smoking, he stopped drinking. But yeah, apparently growing up, he just drank a lot. And from what I hear, he wasn't a mean drunk, but it still causes problems in a family.
Of course.
And so my dad would just busy himself with just anything. He played on like 3 soccer teams, just stuff to stay away from the house.
Yeah.
And that carried over. Like, I've never known him to be able to have just a lazy day
Right.
where he just sits around and does nothing, which in itself he didn't ever say anything, but it made me feel bad because there were plenty of times like, I don't want to do anything. I want to be lazy today.
Right.
And
And then
no,
you see someone like with their motor running.
yeah, constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that instills some feelings too. It's like, oh, I feel like a real lazy.
Does your mom chill out?
No, no, I guess not really either. It was the thing. She didn't work. She worked sometimes, but she was raising us, me and my
Yeah.
sisters, and it
But
was
what
like,
about now?
it's like the house is always clean.
Yeah.
No, she can't chill out. Now
Yeah.
that my sister has kids, so she just buried herself in the grandkids.
Yeah. Anxious people can't sit still because it's too difficult to sit with any feeling that may come up.
But if if there was talk about them being anxious, like, oh, look, I'm anxious, and these are things,
Yeah.
I would have better understood it.
Well, that's the thing. My mom is good at talking about what's going on. When we talk about things like I've everything I've said in this podcast about her, I've said to her face, and she doesn't take it as insulting, or she doesn't like double down and defend it or whatever. Like she's open to talking about it and thinking about it. And maybe that enables me to feel like I can explore my own mental illnesses. Nope. my own mental states, I guess, and not put a lot of judgment on them.
Yeah, but I feel like what's happened now that you've put in some work and you're starting to understand things, now frustration is growing with your mom while she's been good at
It's
expressing it.
Before I was way more frustrated with her because
Oh, you understand it better.
Yeah.
I feel like you get a little more frustrated now that you want her to change things. So now
Right.
you can understand it better now, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And so maybe some of that frustration's gone away, but I feel like sometimes when you talk about it, it's switched a bit. So that now you're just frustrated that she is aware of things, but
Yeah.
isn't taking the next steps.
And it's not up to me.
No, it's her life.
It's not my responsibility to get her to do that. I'm not going to call her up and tell her that I'm disappointed in her not doing it. Like I'm not going to do any of that.
No, but you
because
still want her to, like you said, you want your parents to be the parents. You want them to be a little more
I
advanced and
do.
ahead of you and things.
Yeah.
And what I've realized with
That's an unrealistic expectation, I'm sure.
my parents is as I've gone to therapy and have a better grasp on these things, I am introducing things to them.
Yeah.
And my dad's much more receptive to it. Surprisingly, I thought he was this stoic guy who, he was always emotional when he needed to be, and he didn't like, if I was in a situation where I felt like I wanted to cry, but if other people around, I wouldn't do it. But he would cry in front of people. Like a friend died and he would cry and things. And so it always seemed, that part seemed very healthy. But for some reason in my mind, it's like, it was this, I never gave him
Maybe he didn't sit still long enough for you to get a good read on his emotionality.
Well, yeah, I never gave him a chance to even show that he could understand. Because he's really, when I introduce things, curious about them and explores them. My mom's being a little more difficult.
Yeah.
She thinks she knows best. Her dad died over about a year ago at this point. And the way that happened, it was something in the hospital, and he probably didn't have to die, but there was some treatment that they didn't treat him properly. And that's hard, I guess, when someone dies unexpectedly and you want to blame someone else. And
Yeah.
but the things that she needs to do to move past it, she doesn't necessarily. She did work on the things a little bit, and then just like, no, never mind, I know how to do this myself.
Yeah.
So
It's tough.
but being the person who introduces this stuff,
Yeah.
introduces different ways of thinking and understanding, it doesn't bother me. I'm not saying it bothers you, but I know the desire for your parents is like, hey, if I can figure this stuff out,
Yeah.
then surely you can. Because I felt like a lost cause for a long time, and going back to parents, there's a reason. Well, one, I've never even had a lasting relationship to get to the point where I would have a kid with a person, but I always knew. I was like, no kid, because I felt like a child. I was like, I always was very aware. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to be as a parent, but I knew that I wasn't it. Like I wasn't at
Yeah.
the point. I wasn't at the point where it's like I'm not there. So whatever it is I wanted, I'm not there. So no, I have no interest in having kids right now because, yeah, that's something I would like to do as best to my ability, and hopefully raise some well-rounded kids who can
Yeah.
navigate the shittiness of the world. And I know it's not all shitty. I just say that because there are good things, but I think that's what people don't teach so well is that there is shittiness. And it's like, hey,
Yeah.
it's okay that there is. The good things can exist. It's not always going to be good, but if you know how to navigate these shitty things, you can get more of those good things.
I try and do that, but also preserve their innocence, obviously. I mean, 5 and 3 is not a time to tell them about, the coronavirus or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that's not going to mean anything to them. So if you did
No.
anyway.
But I do it in little ways. Like, I think we saw someone smoking, or maybe she smelled, like Ellie smelled someone smoking or whatever. And she talked about how, like, grandpa smokes. And she's like, why does he do it? He's like, she's saying how bad it is. And like, that's really bad for him. Why does he do that? I was like, some people smoke. I wasn't like, yeah, because, it's bad that he smokes. Like, I didn't try and push that.
The real answer is people are young. And when they're young, they don't think bad things will ever happen to them. And you start smoking because your friends smoke or it's cool
Yeah.
or it's something that's enjoyable. And you keep saying, I'll just do this for another year. I'll just do this for another year. Or I'll do this for 10 years and then I'll quit after 10 years. But then the 10 years eventually comes and you don't actually give it up. And you say, okay, well, I'll quit next year. And then the year passes, and so it just continues like that. And next thing you know, you're old and you've been smoking so long, you get sick and you die. That's the real answer, Ellie. That's
Listen, I don't mind that answer.
but that's the way it happens. When you're young, you don't think bad things are going to happen, so you do
Yeah.
things. We know smoking's bad, but you do it because you're young. You're like, who cares?
Some people never stop for that reason. They
Yeah.
just keep going.
And you just keep doing it, and then at some point, more than likely, something bad is going to happen, and that's why you shouldn't start in the first place.
Well, I told her literally, some people smoke.
I know, but it doesn't. I wish you had told her my answer.
Yeah. Well, you can tell her sometime.
I should. Okay, but
Yeah.
she's young.
Oh.
But you say something like that, and then I think at some point, like, oh yeah, I got that answer. That was a real answer.
Yeah, that's true.
Because there's no other reason. There's
I mean,
no other.
my answer is a real answer. It's just a simplified
Just some
answer.
people smoke.
Some people smoke.
Yeah, but she knows it's. She already knows it's bad.
Yeah.
So it's like, why? If
Some people even they know it's bad for them, but they still smoke. I think I said something like that.
I know, but that leaves so many, or leads to so many more questions. Like, but that doesn't even make sense logically.
Yeah.
So then you have to introduce the other. I'm not critiquing your parenting. Sometimes I'm sure that if I were around kids all the time, I wouldn't want to give answers like that all the time. Like, I'm just,
That's true. It's exhausting.
I'm tired. Some people
Yeah.
just smoke.
Yeah. Maybe that's where I was mentally. Just tired.
Like it's easy for me to sit back, armchair parent. It's like, yeah, of course, I would constantly say this. Like, oh no, the constant bombardment, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, if I give,
Mom. Ugh, what? That's the worst when she's asked me a billion things and then she's like, Mom, I'm like, what? She's like, I love you. Fuck. I love you too.
yeah. And so I say, everything I say on this episode, I'm sure it's easier said than done as a person who doesn't have kids. That, in theory, I stand.
All your experiences from being the kid.
Well,
Some of your
I've
experience.
dated someone who had a kid before, and I spent time with the kid, and I learned.
Yeah.
But no, I think for me to be a good parent, I needed to know myself and understand myself more. Because who the hell am I? Because you are supposed to be a guiding figure. It's like, who the hell am I to
Yeah.
guide someone if I can't even guide myself? So no, I don't want kids. Like right now.
Well, I'm trying to better myself so that I can help my kids navigate the world differently than my parents helped me, because my parents didn't do a bad job. But there were things that have affected my life now in my relationships that I would like to do differently with my kids. Not to say that I'm not going to fuck them up in some unique way, which maybe I will. and then they'll have a podcast talking about what I should have done. And
Well,
that's fine.
life introduces so many questions and
Yeah.
situations that you need to cope with, and kids invent their own coping mechanisms. And
Yeah.
if you don't have the connection needed where you can pick up on that, or they feel comfortable talking to you about it, you can't help them with that. So they
Yeah.
will.
That's the thing. My parents, my mom was always open to like whatever I needed to say to her or whatever. That's always been there. The anxiety thing for her, it triggered something in me that made me feel like I needed to take over for her. And that's where I've taken that kind of thing into my relationships, which is overall not so good.
You just want to be the person who. I don't think you want to be the person who takes control. But that's what you're used to, it sounds like.
Yeah, it gives me a role. It gives me a place in the world because I guess it's what I did when I was young. And then, like I said, the relationship between my parents can sometimes be, something that is, not a river that runs that deep. So,
Well, they say your relationships with your parents are reflected in your, romantic relationships quite often.
yeah,
It's just because there's that bond of family and
it
closeness
feels familiar.
and love, and there's the familiar part of it. I mean,
Yeah.
you could say that one of the big things in my relationship was I just never trusted anyone to understand me, so I just didn't ever open up. I was like, you won't get it.
Everyone was your parents, not
Yeah.
understanding you.
So I'm not gonna even try to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, where's that gonna go? Nowhere.
And I was looking for, fun and a job. It's true.
You just
You
want you just want fun,
And give me a job.
and I have a role in this relationship.
Yeah. And I have a role. I need a specific role. That's, that's what I looked for.
I mean, one of the roles in my relationship, which I forged myself, this wasn't through my parents, but maybe through having an anxious mom, I had to learn to become understanding of it. But it was more so my own anxiety. So when I dated anxious people, I could provide the role of being the person who was understanding and patient. I was like, I get it. I understand.
But then that suppressed a lot of what you needed, or it suppressed any chance for you to express a need because of how it might make them feel.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to be the understanding one and the one that doesn't push them in any way that makes them anxious.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from, I guess. My relationship with my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I've started to push them. And, that'll reflect in other relationships.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yes. I guess we shall see. So, anyway, I think you, because you were very upset about this picture thing today.
Ugh.
And I get it. But you don't need to be perfect.
It's just so unfixable. I emailed the teacher and I asked if there was a makeup day and she said no.
That's weird too.
I want to call the school and say, could I send in a picture from when she was like her previous school picture or whatever. It was maybe from her daycare, her pre-K.
All right. Well, that I think would be good parenting. You screwed up.
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up over it. Don't think you're an awful parent. And if you can find a solution, then there you did your job. And you're actually a very good parent.
Thanks.
Even if you just try and there's not a solution, you still went further than maybe a lot of parents would.
I know I think that there's some, I don't know what it is, but something about, if you're looking into being a good parent, you're already a good parent.
Yeah. Self-awareness, thinking about it,
Yeah.
wanting to improve. That's all it boils down to. I don't know why it's so difficult. It's difficult.
Because it's constant and it's changing constantly because the kids are changing, their needs are changing. It's
a good test because everyone's needs are constantly changing. It just happens more at accelerated rate probably with kids, or it's more obvious.
Oh yeah, like Pete is, just turned 3. He's a month into being 3, and 2 months from now he's going to have a whole new different set of abilities, and it's all going to change in like 2 months. Everything changes so quickly with them.
Man, it's the same thing that needs to be applied to other relationships. People's
Yeah.
needs change, relationships change. If you can be flexible.
Yeah. Allowing them to change. Yeah. And keeping up with it too, not expecting them to always be the same forever. It's a good point.
There, so you feel better.
Yeah, I do.
You missed the photo op. Fine. Oh God. You'll be all right. The kids will be all right. Maybe. Or maybe it'll really screw Ellie up. Like this
I
is
never
the,
got a kindergarten picture.
This is the
She's
moment she
like-
cites in therapy or in her podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
My mom fucked up picture day in kindergarten.
I'm sorry, Ellie. Thanks for listening to One Topic. I hope you guys liked this episode. I really wanted to pick a topic today that a lot of people would connect with. So I hope it connected with you. And like and subscribe, rate and review. And
Listen for
hey,
yeah.
maybe if you have any ideas for topics, could we solicit that kind of thing? Maybe if you want to go to our Facebook page or...
Sure. I mean, we did. We've taken a topic suggestion once. It's
Yeah.
become somewhat of an infamous episode. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, if you have any ideas of a topic you'd like us to cover, I would be really interested to know what it is. Get in touch with me on social media or us through One Topic Facebook page, or I think we're on Twitter. You can email us. I think it's onetopic01@gmail. Whatever, search for it, find us. You can get in touch with us and tell us.
It is 01
Okay.
at Gmail. One
But
topic
yeah.
01. 0
Thank you.
01.
01, not LMNOP1. Hey, Greg,
Hey, Autumn.
do you like hot sauce?
You know, I do like hot sauce, but I'm getting pretty bored of my regular Texas Pete or Tabasco. I'm looking for a local sauce without any additives or extracts. A company that uses local peppers so it's as fresh as possible, and a company that really cares about the integrity of the sauce and where their ingredients come from.
Definitely.
And hey, while we're at it, I don't want a sauce with too many ingredients. You know, a lot of other sauces out there, they have all kinds of fillers. So I'd love to find a sauce with, I don't know, let's say no more than 5 ingredients. I mean, it's crazy, but there's gotta be a company out there that hand processes their sauce. You know, bottling and labeling every bottle themselves. I'm probably asking a lot.
Well, you really are, but there is a hot sauce out there who only uses 5 ingredients,
What?
0 fillers,
Huh?
additives, or extracts, and who bottles, labels, and packages everything themselves. It's called Hop Sauce.
What?
They're a small batch hot sauce company out of Chattanooga, Tennessee that's won Best Louisiana-style sauce in the country. How many times? Not once, not twice, 3 times.
3 times!
How does that sound, Greg?
I think that sounds amazing.
You know how you can get your own bottle of hot sauce?
No, tell me please now.
Hoffandpepper.com. And not only am I giving you the gift of the best hot sauce that you'll ever taste, I'm going to give you 15% off if you use the code ONETOPIC15.
Hold on, that's
Yes, get a pen and paper.
1 topic 15.
Good. That's ONETOPIC 15, all squished together at checkout. You'll get 15% off your order and your life will be better.
Thank you.
You're welcome.